let's talk about part 3 of the test that you will be able to retake for full credit later today. So if cosine of theta equals the square root of 2 over 2, theta could be equal to which of these options? Well, let's look at our unit circle. I'm assuming you have it in front of you during this, and you're obviously not required to memorize it since I can't be there to see that you don't have it out. You'll be required to memorize it next year, don't worry. So let's look at where the x value, that's what cosine is square root of 2 over 2. Looks like that occurs here at pi over 4, and here it's 7 pi over 4. Well, looking at our answers, pi over 4 is not an option, so that's not it. 7 pi over 4 is, so that must be our answer. Keep in mind I would never put pi over 4 and 7 pi over 4 as answers because they're both equally correct. Next part, matching. So let's start with sine of theta equals 1/2. So this means we're looking for where the y value of the coordinates on the unit circle is 1/2. Looks like that occurs at pi over 6 and 5. Let's see. Y value is 1/2, pi over 6, and 5 pi over 6. Okay? So let's see. Are either of those our option? That's really what we want to know. Well, I don't see 5 pi over 6, but conveniently I do see pi over 6. So that's our answer. Theta equals pi over 6. Okay, and so now we've used that one, it's no longer an option. Next one, sine of theta is negative 1/2. So we're looking for when y is negative 1/2. We look for that, it looks like we have 11 pi over 6 and 7 pi over 6. Do we see either of those? We do, conveniently. I don't see 11 pi over 6, but I see 7 pi over 6. So this must be theta equals 7 pi over 6. So that's no longer an option. This last one is the one that I think made you guys all think that I screwed up, which I do sometimes, but in this case we just had to look at it a little differently. So when is the y value negative 1? The only spot where that occurs, get rid of these, the only spot where that occurs is at 3 pi over 2. And so first, the instinct is to say, oh, answer's not there. And that's not necessarily true. We just have to look at it differently. So I do know that my answer is going to be something over 2. Okay? So it can't be the negative 7 pi over 6 or the negative pi over 6. So we have two options. And the idea is there are other ways to get to this spot on the unit circle than just starting at 0 and going pi over 2, 2 pi over 2, 3 pi over 2. That's what we usually do in general, but there's other ways too. And this goes back to earlier in chapter 4, before we did this, super fun distance learning stuff. It's, I don't know, I guess an okay substitute for real school, but not great. Back when we did the unit circle. Actually, I think before that. The idea is that counterclockwise and clockwise, and sometimes multiple times around the circle, can get you to the same angle or the same spot or the same reference angle, depending on how you look at it. So let's look at 5 pi over 2, say. Let's see if this one works. Let's see where we get to on the circle. Let's do the rainbow color just to be extra fun. So we're starting at 0, and then we'll go to pi over 2, 2 pi over 2, 3 pi over 2, 4 pi over 2, 5 pi over 2. So we would end up there, which isn't what we wanted. So then our answer isn't 5 pi over 2. And yes, I know my circles are beautiful. Okay. Now, let's try negative 5 pi over 2, see if it gets what we want. I mean, it kind of has to, right? So starting here again, but now it's negative, so we'll go clockwise. So negative pi over 2, negative 2 pi over 2, negative 3 pi over 2, negative 4 pi over 2, negative 5 pi over 2. Yay, we ended up where we wanted. So our answer is theta equals negative 5 pi over 2.